So again, that's some of the audio that was played during the sentencing. Now, Gwen, we've kind of been flirting with this idea and bouncing around, but how much of this is a done deal in the minds of the jury based on what they've heard?
Well, what's so interesting, Brian, is that Cornell Law School did a study in their death penalty project. And specifically, they went state by state. And in South Carolina, 14% of jurors who were death qualified thought that the defendant should get the death penalty just if there was a murder, period. 54% said that they should get, that the defendant should get the death penalty if it was planned. I mean, this is just going into it. This is South Carolina.
Yeah, and I can only imagine if it's one murder, 17%. Now, I'm not the greatest at math, but if it's 5 murders and they're children, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to multiply that 17 by 5 or the 14 by 5, or I'm supposed to carry the 3 and add the 10.
Oh my gosh,
but it seems
we're
like
going
way
well over 100%.
Yeah. So it appears that the science and at least the way that people perceive the death penalty in South Carolina would suggest that he's looking at the death penalty.
I believe so. I strongly believe so.
So the only question, I guess, would be, obviously with the death penalty, he's not sentenced to death the very next day. There are appeals and there are other processes before we get there. I guess the question is, will the appeal save his life? Was there anything in this case that might have been done wrong? But I guess as long as we've been following it, I don't see much.
Not that I saw, but you know, who knows? I mean, they are definitely going to appeal this. But I didn't see anything.
Yeah. Now, during the trial, speaking of seeing things, during the trial, we actually had the FBI interview with Timothy Jones on this case. Let's listen to the testimony that was given at that time. So there you have some of the FBI testimony from the Timothy Jones case. Now, currently, they are done for the day. Okay, so we're going to be switching gears from the Timothy Jones case. But before we do that, Gwen, as I know we might be beating a dead horse here, but as we continually hear this testimony, it seems like the trial was just the beginning. And this is really where the prosecution is getting into the meat and potatoes. So what do you believe, other than what we've seen, the prosecution needs to give in order to get to the verdict that they're looking for?
I think they just need to do more of the same. And like I said, they have 2 big aggravating factors. One, that the kids are under 11 years old, given, fact, end of story. The other one that they have is that there was multiple deaths from a common scheme. That one, again, the jury will have to decide that, but just all they need is one aggravating factor. It's
going to be interesting as they escalate, because we're seeing principal and babysitter. I'm assuming we're going to get to some of the more heavy-hitting testimony from either mother or closer family members that are going to be really interesting to see how this jury decides. There you have the testimony from the sole witness in a murder case. Now, Gwen, one witness, doesn't seem to have any dog in the fight. Seems credible, no?
He seemed pretty credible. He heard the shots. He didn't see Hatcher get murdered. He heard the shots.
So I guess less of an eyewitness and more of an ear witness.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I guess for that then, it merely gives us the time and the placement. It's going to be other evidence that connects Brenda Delgado to this case. We know that there are 2 other people who took pleas and are expected to be testifying against her, or did, testify against her as well.
Well, Love was convicted.
Yeah.
The shooter was convicted. The plea was Courtney.
Correct. And so as people have already been convicted or taking a plea, it seems that that case against Brenda Delgado is only going to get that much harder. Now, we know the case has already been done. The prosecution has rested, the defense has rested. The next step is just for the jury to hear the case. It seems like a pretty quick case.
It is a really quick case. I was really surprised about that too.
Yeah. I know for a lot of attorneys, the quickness of a case is somewhat like reading tea leaves. What is your 2 cents about the quickness of a case? Is that a pro-defense case, a pro-prosecution case? Is there something specific about this case as to why it was so quick?
I'm not really sure why it was so quick in this case. I think the prosecution put their case on. They got what they wanted. They had the cousin who testified that Delgado approached him to want to kill the dentist, and also her friend was approached by Delgado. I mean, pretty devastating evidence. I mean, why would they lie?
Exactly. They have their, like I said, no dog in the fight. No, they're what we call uninterested witnesses.
Exactly.
No reason to really lie. Now, Jose Ortiz was the individual who actually loaned his Jeep that was used in the shooting of Delgado, and this is what he had to say when he testified. So oftentimes in murder cases, again, it's not the movies, you can't see the whole video, you can't see everything happens, it's a matter of connecting the dot. Gwen, this seems to be one of the dots the prosecution connected in their trial, showing where she got the car from, and then I believe he gave some testimony later on that will show about what Ms. Delgado said to him after he loaned the car. Is this just one more nail in the coffin for her conviction?
I really think it is. I mean, she clearly, by getting this Jeep involved instead of her regular car, is trying to disguise the getaway vehicle. So I think it definitely helps the prosecution. Again, Ortiz was an old family friend. It's the same thing that we keep talking about, is why are these witnesses, what is their motive to lie? When we talk about Courtney, she certainly has a motive to lie. But these three that we are talking about, what is their motive to lie?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, let's listen to his testimony about what Ms. Delgado said to him after he rented the car to see if there was a motive to lie. So Gwen, kind of as you alluded to with this witness, consciousness of guilt seems to be a major component here. How much weight do you think a jury should give as to factors of consciousness of guilt or factors against it?
Consciousness of guilt is a very big factor when it comes into whether jurors decide if somebody is guilty or not, especially with intent. So for example, we're talking about flight. In Pennsylvania, for example, if somebody flees, there's actually a jury instruction that says that flight is a factor to show consciousness of guilt.
Oh, and I think they're bringing it up a lot here with this witness because, as you said, this is basically a family member. And you would assume that this close family friend would lie for her.
Right.
But now he's doing the opposite.
Right.
So it seems like this is a witness the jury should really believe.
I think so.
Yeah. And then I know in previous testimony, they actually had the FBI agent who arrested her, and on one side the prosecution is saying fled to Mexico, and then the other side the defense saying, well, she voluntarily turned herself over in the presence of counsel.
Right.
And it seems that everyone seems to be in the same mindset as you of, we've got to address this.
Yeah, because the defense has to do something. They have to spin why she, being in Mexico. Obviously, if somebody is taking off from Mexico, looks like they're fleeing, and that shows consciousness of guilt. So the defense did a good job of twisting it a little bit.
Yeah, you've got to change flee to went away, not consciousness of guilt to consciousness of something else. Now, Gwen, I know this is the Dallas dentist murder for hire, but as I'm listening to this, another phrase seems to come to mind: hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. This seems like she was scorned, and this is her fury.
Oh, she was scorned. I mean, even the defense in their opening statement admitted that she was cyber stalking the dentist. So this is definitely, there was testimony that they do acknowledge that she was very jealous of her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend. This is not good for her.
Yeah. And we talked about consciousness of guilt as going towards intent, but there's also motive. And this is probably one of the strongest of motives for murder. I mean, we talk about crimes of passion, of the heart, of love. This seems to be right up that alley.
This is exactly what they write movie scripts about. I mean, this is exactly what they do. So, and again, we go back to the prosecution witnesses who said that she approached her cousin, her friend, now Crystal Cortez. The other friend, I forget her name right now, said that Delgado asked her to use her heroin injection and try and kill Hatcher. Her cousin said that Delgado wanted him to use a baseball bat to kill Hatcher. This is not good. I mean, but the thing we have to keep in mind is that Crystal Cortez has a motive to lie.
Yeah, and I think the woman you're talking about with the heroin is Jennifer Escobar.
Right.
But you're right. And again, it goes to the theme of, if you were scorned, man, woman, anyone in between, who would you go to? I'd go to my friends. I'd go to my family friends. How do I get back at my ex? How do I get back at this person? So again, you're right. This seems like a book that my girlfriend always seems to read of crime and passion and love and murder. And it seems like they've got all their ducks in a row for this prosecution here.
They do, except there is a hole, and it was brought out on cross-examination of Crystal Cortez, which is that when she talked to the detectives originally, she said that it was a robbery gone bad. She didn't talk about Delgado. She also got 35 years instead of, life in prison. So she got a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Let's see if that hole is large enough. We actually have more testimony from Crystal Cortez about the actual shooting. Let's take a listen. So this continued testimony from Crystal Cortez. Gwen, you've talked about the hole there, it's reasonable doubt. I guess the question is, as we juxtapose her testimony here to the reasonable doubt, how reasonable does the reasonable doubt need to be, or how much doubt does it need to be in order to kind of wash away this potential guilty verdict?
Well, it doesn't have to be all doubt, just a reasonable doubt. But again, I know I keep talking about the prosecution witnesses who are family members and friends. I think that is going to really weigh heavily for the prosecution, in favor of the prosecution, even though we have holes with Crystal Cortez. To me, where I see a hole is when you look at the cell phone records. You've got lots of calls going back and forth between Crystal Cortez and Delgado, but there's no call between Love and Delgado. That is a bit, I'm sure the defense is going to really hit hard on that.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, but I think it can cut both ways, because either that is a sign of innocence, or maybe the sign of like a criminal mastermind, never to be too connected with the smoking gun, to say.
I agree.
Yeah.
That is definitely a way to look at it.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I agree with you. For most defense attorneys, we love to be able to say, this person has a stake in this. There's a reason why they're lying. This. But with so many of these witnesses, that's absent. It's going to be interesting to see how the defense seems to try to wrap that up to present their case.
Exactly.
And I'm assuming they're putting this all on, and you alluded to it when Crystal said this was a robbery gone wrong. But I know, I'm not too sure about how it works in Texas. I know in New York, if there's a robbery gone wrong and you know the person's armed or there's a potential for death, there's still a possibility he can be found liable for that death. So is that still a defense that you think that might weigh heavily on the jury and might find him innocent? I
don't think so. I don't. I mean, I agree that could be a way that the defense goes, but I don't think so.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Like I said, the case is still on break for today. We're just recapping some of the testimony, and hopefully we'll get to hear more after this break.